Well, we're talking Italian genealogy again today, and we're following up to kind of a beginning Italian genealogy research that we did with Sarah Gutman, and she is back today. She's going to explain how it might be possible to get dual Italian and U.S. citizenship. Welcome back to the show, Sarah.
Thank you, Lisa. It's always fun to be back.
Well, this is a really interesting topic, and I have had this question over the years, whether it's Italian or Irish or whatever, and I am really interested myself to hear from you. How does this work? It's possible to get dual citizenship with Italy and U.S.?
It is. I have it myself. I got mine in 2019, and I was very lucky because I snagged an opening. Now, some places in America, New York, before the pandemic, there was a 2-year wait time to get an appointment. In California, it's 8 years. And I just happened to be up in the middle of the night taking care of babies, looking at my phone, and I noticed that there was an appointment cancellation, and I jumped on it. And it was like a genealogy roadshow, just getting all the documentations ready to go. And to make that connection over to the Italian consulate and get all my paperwork done. And it's just such a fun thing to have it's always fun to just say, oh, I'm an Italian citizen. But really, I think for genealogists, it's a way of feeling that connection with our ancestors and really just feeling like you are part of a greater story. And it's something that you can pass down to your kids. If they're under the age of 18, it follows them. So when I became an Italian citizen, my 2 kids automatically became one, and their children will also automatically roll into that. So it's really exciting. And there's a lot of great benefits too to gaining your Italian citizenship. Some of them are free healthcare. So God forbid something ever happened to you here in America, you could go over to Italy and you could get treated, and there's no charge for that. If you have your Italian citizenship, you are also entitled to a free college education over there. So that would be the equivalency of going to as like a state school here. So there are schools over in Italy and some schools also in the European Union that participate in that. So that really kind of opens the door. And of course, there's getting that EU passport. So if you're a seasoned traveler, you don't have to be waiting on lines to get your US passport stamped. You can move here and there relatively easy, which my dad was excited about. Lots of great things. And you also don't have to pay taxes over to Italy, and you don't have to serve in the military. Now, those sound silly, but they are two important things that you do need to know if you are thinking about applying for dual citizenship with other countries. This is a side note. My sister-in-law had called me a few weeks ago, and my nephew is studying abroad over in Israel. Now, my last name is Gutman, and although it is a Jewish name, we don't have Jewish family that I have identified yet. So she had wanted to know if my nephew could possibly get dual Israeli citizenship. And I said no. And then I later found out that you have to serve in the military if you are a man who gets dual Israeli citizenship. And I think that might be a big surprise to a lot of people who weren't planning on that. So just know for Italy, you don't have to have that. There's just a lot of perks. I've yet to find a downside, and it's just something that's really exciting and fun to go with.
Well, that's a great point. It's not always the benefits, but I think it sounds like the biggest benefit. It's just that idea of reconnecting with that kind of homeland, if you will, and that it's shared within the generations within your family, your kids and your grandkids. You have some slides to show us and kind of talk about what this process is like, right?
Sure. Yeah. So this is talking about the process of gaining dual Italian American citizenship. So some of the things that we're going to be talking about is who can become a citizen. Could you possibly be eligible? And what is really fun and exciting is a lot of times I'll get these Italian American projects and I start researching on it, and a little flag goes up and says, oh, I think this person, can't say for sure, but I think this person might be eligible for citizenship. So you might want to look in that further. So it happens a lot more than I think most people would expect it to. So we'll find out how you could be eligible. Some things you're going to need to know if you want to apply for citizenship is find out when your ancestor naturalized and get those documents. We'll talk about that. How to identify your ancestor's specific commune or village where they're coming from. We'll touch on about using the Italian archive site, which I talked about in a previous video. How to go about requesting records from Italy, and also getting the documents that you need over in this country. So this is who can apply for citizenship. And I took this it's a wonderful Facebook group, and they've been so helpful to me and just to thousands of people. It's the Dual U.S. Italian Citizenship on Facebook. And if you're thinking about it, I highly recommend joining that, following that group, because they have a lot of really great stuff. And this is one of their charts that they have new members look at. And it gives you kind of an idea of, could you be eligible for dual citizenship? And it's a little bit of a flow chart. Now, Italy as a country did not exist, as we know it, until 1861. So first of all, we have to make sure that our ancestor either naturalized or died after March 17th, 1861. And the good news is, because of the different waves of Italian immigrants coming over to this country, I find that most people's Italian ancestors did not come over during the time period where we were still dealing with the kingdoms in Italy. So a lot of people are able to go through that route. Now, the big thing that really puts people on the yes, you can do this, or maybe you can go look for another branch, is you have to know when your ancestor naturalized, and if they naturalized before or after your ancestor was born. So say, for example, we'll look at my great-grandfather. So my great-grandpa, his name was Charles Guidotti. He became an American citizen in 1932. Now, my grandpa was born in 1929. So when grandpa was born, his father was still an Italian citizen. Therefore, my grandpa was able to carry down that citizenship and pass it on to his future descendants. And sometimes what happens is you'll find a family, maybe a family all really wants to go for dual Italian citizenship. They're all trying to go through one ancestor. That ancestor may have had one or two kids, and then they naturalized and had some more kids. Now, the kids who were born before the ancestor naturalized, they would likely be eligible for dual Italian citizenship. The ones who naturalized, who were born after that individual naturalized, that line is cut and they are not able to go for dual Italian citizenship. So that's really interesting, and also kind of defeating for some people when they're trying to go in as a family and get this, and they realize, oh wait, you guys can do it, but we can't.
So, Sarah, they couldn't go through their grandfather?
So they would not have been able to go through that, their grandfather, because the grandfather had one line after he was naturalized and one line before. So the line before he was naturalized can get it, the line after he cannot. And you can't skip generations. So sometimes I've had people say, oh, my grandfather was from Italy, he naturalized, but his grandfather came to this country and never naturalized. Unfortunately, you're going to the one that's closest to you. So that's where the line is drawn. You can't skip a generation. Great. Now, this flow chart does kind of help with that. Now, the other tricky thing is women. And you, if possible, want to trace back the paternal line. That's going to be your easiest route to getting your citizenship. And again, I can't make any promises or disclaimers that, that you're getting it or not, but this is usually who's eligible for it. So some I guess, different categories that you may find yourself falling into. One is you're a direct descendant. Your parents were Italian citizens, therefore, you're possibly eligible for citizenship. And this is also going to depend on your birthday, which I'll talk about in a second. And again, is through descent from your ancestor, as I was just mentioning before. And the big thing that you can kind of knock a lot of people out is prior to 1948, women were not able to pass on their citizenship to their children. So technically, I could be an Italian citizen on both my dad's side, and my dad's father's side, and my dad's mother's side, because my dad was born in 1957. So my grandma, who was a first-generation Italian, she was a first-generation American. She was born in 1929. She gained her father as well as, she gained her father's Italian citizenship. She then, because it was after 1948, she was able to pass her citizenship on to my dad and subsequently me. Now, if my parent had been born prior to 1948, my grandma would not have been able to pass on her citizenship to that individual. So that's another thing you have to look at, is what line are you going through? Are you dealing with a woman in there prior to 1948? Now, it is possible to apply for citizenship, but it is a lot more costly, and there's a lot more detail going into it. You will, if you want to try a 1948 case, you're going to have to get some type of legal representation. Sometimes that person has to appear in a court over in Italy to petition for you. So it can get costly. So you want to hope that you can find a man line to kind of just slide down and get. So those are your best ways of getting it, but it is possible. So big question is, how do I know when my ancestor naturalized? So I like to use the clues from census records. I always think that census records, although they're not primary sources, they give a really great jumping off point to other records. So you get a census, and we're looking probably between the 1900s, 1920s. That's really when our wave of Italian immigrants are coming in, and we're going to be seeing them. And we want to take note of the year of immigration and see if we can find maybe a passenger record. And hopefully that also might tell us what town our family is coming from. Because in order to be successful at this, we're going to need to identify our ancestors' village of origin. So might be able to look at a passenger record. And with a passenger record, you want to think, okay, 5 years after that time period where they came over to America, we're looking for maybe a naturalization record in that time period. So that's also going to be a clue. Now, in some of the census records, they actually ask naturalization status. So AL, if you see that, that means alien. NA is naturalized. PA is they've submitted their first papers to become naturalized. So one thing with my family I had found out was in the 1910 census, it was AL, and then in the 1920 census, it's NA. So now you have that 10-year gap where you can start looking, okay, I think my family probably naturalized during this time period, and be hyper aware to looking for records in that span. Now, you can find these records a lot of times, census records and lots of great records, on the Always Free Family Search. And we're also going to use our census records and where our family was living at the time to help us find where they actually naturalized and help us look for those naturalization records. Now, there are two main periods when we're thinking about naturalization records and where those records are located. So prior to September 27th, 1906, any court of record, so we're talking town, county, federal, could grant U.S. citizenship. After that time period, 1906, naturalization is going to be done through the federal courts. So when you're looking for these pre-1906 records, unfortunately, you're not going to be able 90% of the time to find them through a National Archives search. You're going to have to know the exact place that your ancestor naturalized and request records from there. And this is something that's helpful if you do some Family Search Wiki. You can look up places, see where these naturalization records. I'm also a big fan of just calling towns and counties and saying, hey, I think my ancestor naturalized in 1905 here. Who am I going to contact to see if these naturalization records exist? Because they are different in different counties and states, and just to be aware of that. If you hope, because it's easier to get those naturalization records for people who naturalized after 1906, because there is a one central database, and we'll talk about how to access that. But again, if you're looking for those pre-1906 records, you want to find exactly the place where they are filing for this. Now, this is an example of a naturalization record, and this one here is from 1900. This is my great great grandfather, Lorenzo Frigetti, and his name is over here. He has the actual Italian spelling that he used. He later changed the spelling of his name, so this is also a good record to see what that original surname was in your family. Now, there's not that much information. Well, there's actually no information regarding the village that he's coming from, but we still get some other helpful hints and references to go searching for information like that. Now, my great-grandpa, the one who I naturalized, who used his naturalization record to gain my dual citizenship, there's a lot more information. You can just see here, in the 30-year time period, all the great stuff that this form is asking. So now this is being kept on the federal level, whereas that 1900 naturalization record is going, I found that at the local court in the town where he had naturalized in Yonkers, New York. So this record, which actually was also available in Yonkers, New York, but it's also available through the National Archives because it's after that 1906 period. But this record is asking what ship he came over on. It's asking what town he's from, where his family is from, anybody born over in Italy. You get to see this great picture of him. And it also asks this really important question. Did you come over and use another name? Because sometimes, a lot of times, these Italian consulate are going to need to know the actual name that your ancestor was born under. And it says, yes, I came under with the name Carlo Guidotti, which is not the typical name. It's usually Calgaro for people who go for Charles. So I guess he decided he liked Charles once he got over here and started using that. But it gives you a lot of great information, and you can use this to help you find your village of origin when you're looking through those Italian archives. Now, if you want to order your ancestor's naturalization record, even if you're not sure if they naturalize, you really don't have that much information on them, but it's worth a shot. If it's after 1906, you can go to www.uscis.gov/records/genealogy. And it's going to give you to this website, and it's going to ask you, do you know the person's index number? And most of the times just say no. And you're going to order an index search. And that index search can take a very long time at this point because the National Archives are not really open for business. And if they are, it's in dribs and drabs. So it is taking a lot longer than possible. I did receive a record that I requested a year ago, so that's at least a little bit of something. But it's $65 to get the index search, and then if it comes back that it has a record, it's another $65 to get that record, just so you have a sense of price going into there. So if you want to order the index search, you're going to have to know some things about your immigrant ancestor. You're going to need to know their name, at least have a general idea of their birth date. If not, a span of it, try to get it down, at least a few years. Their place. If you know their actual town or address, that is really helpful, especially if you're dealing with somebody who has a very common name. I was always very lucky because my Italian names of like Forgetti and Gadati, those aren't something that people have. You often see those, so it's easier to find those records. But if you have a last name like Russo, you're going to need to provide more information.
Right.
And also, if you know of any household members, they're going to ask you to fill out the names, the ages of anybody in the house, spouses, children's parents, and if you know the year of immigration. So all of this information is going to help you get the most out of your index record search. So hopefully you find out that your immigrant ancestor was a procrastinator and they naturalized after their child was born. So now, knowing that, you can start gathering some vital records. So for each direct descendant of your immigrant ancestor, you're going to need to get certified documents, and those are going to, switch the slide here. First thing we're going to do is try to get the information from the Italian commune where your ancestors from. So in-line relatives, we're going to need their birth certificate, and that has to be from the commune itself. And it's going to have a stamp on it, and you're going to get it, and you're going to think, I could have just done this in my house. This little stamp, go to Michael's and put a stamp on it, but it's official and you need it. For your out-of-line relatives, so maybe your direct ancestor spouse, you're going to be able to get a copy of their birth record or their death record or marriage record. And a lot of these you can find on the Italian Archives website. You can find on Family Search, and it's just simple as downloading that file. So that saves you some time and money. But again, we're going to need those certified copies from these Italian records. So finding the village of origin, places you're going to be looking for that to know is the naturalization records. We're looking at ship manifests, draft records, which I always think is one of those hidden gems of places you can find where your family's coming from. Of course, you have vital records, obituaries, and your ancestors' fan club. Trying to look at all those members and see if you can figure out what town your family was coming from in Italy. So once you've figured out where your family's coming from in Italy, you have to then contact that village and try to get those records from them. And that can be a very daunting task because they're not that quick to respond. So contacting the commune. One of the really great resources I like is this website right here. And it's comuni.Itali.it. And you can locate your village's website there. And you can find also the village's address and their regular mail address and reach out to them. Now, a couple of pro tips when you're requesting information from these Italian villages, you want to include, this is very important, you want to include your passport or driver's license because they will not respond to you if you don't. You also want to send it in Italian. And what I like to do is send a copy in Italian and also another copy in English, so that sometimes when I'm working with lots of clients, I can get it back and I'm thinking, oh wait, where's this one coming from? And I just flip the page and that's from here because I wrote it in English. And really, you're going to have to follow up. I got to the point with one place when I was doing it for myself. I got an international phone plan, and this is before I worked for Legacy Tree, and things have gotten a lot easier since working from them. But I got an international phone plan. And I would call them in the middle of the night here to talk to somebody over there. And it was very broken Italian and broken English. So, but I got it done. So I was very happy about that. Now, using that website that I had just mentioned, this is what that looks like. And you can click on your province, your region, search it there, and then select your village. And this is pretty cool because it gives you information about the church. You can go to the church's website if they have one there. It also, if you scroll down, will give you the names of the churches in that town. And you can then Google that and find the address to write to them. This right here is the official town site that you can contact. It also gives you the lists of the banks and the pharmacies if you wanted to, reach out to them too. Who knows? And if you look at one of these official websites, it's going to, this is one of the, for the town, scroll down, and this is kind of commonplace for all these town websites. Scroll down to the bottom, just like you would in America one, and it's going to give you the contact information. Now, this is also very important. You're going to see two different types of email addresses. This one has PEC on it. This is your regular email address. Don't bother, unless you have one, trying to email them through the PEC email address. That's something that you have to have a identification number, and you have to take out a special type of email address. I have one myself, but now working for Legacy, I don't even need it anymore because they've got lots of great tools that I can use. But you won't get a response if you use that. It just kind of shuts it off. This is your regular go-to email address. And then you have the actual snail mail address too. And I do find that a lot of these villages respond very well to fax. So that's also another way of getting the information. So fax, email, regular mail. And with everything, please make sure to include your identification. Now, this is what it's going to look like when you get that document that you've been waiting months for. It's going to look like this. And again, you can see that tiny little stamp that looks like something you would have been able to do yourself. But that's your golden ticket to the Italian consulate and getting that coveted citizenship. And they're taking the information from this record off of basically this record. So you're using one of the Italian, something from the Italian archives. You could probably see this. If you do have the actual record that you have found from the Italian archive, go ahead, print that out, and attach that to your requests, because that makes, I think, life a little bit easier, and I think it makes people a little bit more responsive to finding that information and helping you out. So that's what you're going to need on the Italian side. Now, for our non-Italian records, we're going to need birth, marriage, divorce, if applicable, and death records for all our direct ancestors. So for me, I needed my birth record along with my kids, my marriage record. I actually needed my husband's divorce record from his previous marriage, a copy of that. And I needed my dad's birth and marriage record, and my grandfather's birth, marriage record, and his father's birth, marriage, and death record. All of those records, I needed to have the official copy, and then I needed to send it out to get an apostille. Now, I'll talk about an apostille in a second. Some states, like New York, it's several steps, but it's easy enough. You send it to the town level, you send it to the county level, and then it goes to the state level to get the apostille stamp saying that this document can be used for international reasons. So for our out-of-line relatives, we can use, so for me, again, that's my mother, my paternal grandmother, and my paternal great-grandmother. I just needed photocopies of their birth and death records. So that was just something I had in my closet back here. I could just print out a copy of it. And with whenever you order these documents, you're going to, even if you have them in your file, you're going to want to order new copies of them because they're going to take them and you're never going to see them again. And you have to order the long form and indicate when you're ordering documents that you're doing it for dual Italian citizenship. So that's very important. Whenever you order these documents, again, order the long form and order it noting that you're getting it for dual Italian citizenship. That's very, very important. And now an apostille is once you have your document, you're going to send it out and it's going to the Secretary of State for whatever state that the document was issued in. And you're going to get something that looks like that with an apostille on it, saying pretty much that the person who created this record was a person who was authorized to do this. And yes, I say that, yes, this is a true document and this can be used for international use. Now, your maybe beginning step or your last step, depending on where you feel comfortable in this research process, is you have to make your appointment to get your citizenship. And some consulates right now are closed. They're not taking appointments yet. New York just opened up, and which is really cool because there was that 2-year wait. Now they are currently booking in June. So if you have your documents ready to go, you can get an appointment. And the new appointments are posted at midnight Rome time. So what I like to do is set a timer on my phone for what would be the equivalency of 11:55 p.m. Rome time. And I'll go onto the website, and it reminds me of Ticketmaster when you're trying to get tickets for an event, because as soon as these dates are posted, they are gone. But you can get them, and sometimes, like I did, you can snag a cancellation. And people will cancel, and that becomes available. They don't announce it, and you can just swoop in and grab it. So keep that in mind. Just keep going back. Don't get frustrated. Sometimes it takes about a month to actually get that appointment. And also, a very important step is to go to your Italian consulate website and fill out any of the citizenship forms that they're asking. They're not that difficult. That's probably the easiest part of there is to fill out the forms that you need. And they also have a checklist and instructions about how to go and apply for citizenship. Now, the actual citizenship process that they charge you at the consulate is the equivalency of 300 euros. So that's not that bad in the grand scheme of things. And they'll also ask you to provide your driver's license and a utility bill, because one thing they're going to definitely check for is that you're using the consulate that is appropriate to where you live. So just because California may have an 8-year wait doesn't mean you can go to Philadelphia, which is only a few months. So they want to make sure that you're applying to where you're supposed to be applying. Oh, and another big thing that you're going to have to do is get your documents translated, the ones from America. And there are services out there that are not that expensive. Some you find them for $10, these legal translations, some great stuff. And just get everything ready to hopefully go to the consulate and have your paperwork stamped and sent off to your village and get recorded in the book. I think this is so cool. Your name gets recorded in the book where your ancestors were from, and you're part of that. And then your children's children, you send whoever, they'll send that in, and they get recorded in that same town's book. I just think that is so cool. So,
oh my gosh, I mean, it's quite a process, but I can already tell that you could end up tripling your time not knowing some of the pro tips, like you said, if somebody's already been through the process.
Yeah, like it's definitely, and I honestly, I was not working for Legacy when I started this. I've learned so much, and every person has a unique case. And I was asked by somebody, how time consuming, how difficult, how expensive is this process, overall with all the documents. And that varies based on how many generations you're going back. And if you know where your ancestors are from, and if you have access to those documents. I was very lucky because I grew up in this pretty much in the same area where my ancestors are from. So I just took a car ride to Yonkers, New York, and I got all the documents, and I got it in an afternoon, and I was done. And I was also very lucky because their naturalization records were right there. So I didn't have to wait. It was just a matter of the nice lady, stamping it for me and handing it back.
Amazing.
So all of this is going to, it's really going to vary based on the location, how much digging you have to find. And I'll also say sometimes people, and this is something that we get at Legacy Tree, get really frustrated because they can't find that needed document. Maybe they can't find that marriage record from somebody in New York. We work with agencies like ICA, DCI, and they tell us, okay, if you contact this county and get them a letter saying that there are no results for this couple, and that's certified, and you get from these 7 counties, you'll be able to use that at the consulate and kind of say you did your due diligence, you can't find these records, but you still are able to make that generational connection. So all is not lost if you can't find the needed record. You might just need to do a little reaching out to some pros.
Exactly. Like you. So we've been, as you know, talking with Sarah Gutman, and you're with Legacy Tree Genealogists, and we'll have the link in the description below this video. I'm interested to know, Sarah, did it make any difference in terms of your U.S. passport, your U.S. citizenship? Is there any impact on the U.S. side? And have you been to Italy since you got your dual citizenship?
No, I have not been. The last time I was in Italy was in 2007. And I'll tell you an interesting story. So my grandpa, he's 90 years old. He was always told that he was first generation American. And I was playing around one day in Ancestry like you do, and I came across this family, and it was the exact makeup of my family, of his father and siblings and parents on this passenger list. The only difference was the name was Carlo Guidotti, not Charles Guidotti. Mm-hmm. So then I started doing some digging, and I found out that my great-grandfather was born in Italy. And for some reason, I think it was because he married a Czechoslovakian woman, he had always said that he also was born in New York. So I was very excited, and I showed my grandpa that. I was really sad and kind of shocked because my grandpa was very upset because he felt like his father had withheld all this information from him. Like why didn't my dad tell me he was born in Italy? That wouldn't matter to me, but just to know that there was that secret there. But once Grandpa came around to that, he was so helpful, and you can't do it. You literally can't do it without my grandpa because he's got to sign off on the paper saying that I acknowledge that I've never become an Italian citizen, and I give permission to my granddaughter to get citizenship. You have to actually get permission from your elders if they're still alive, or you have to prove that they are deceased. And that's how I got it. And I would love to be able to take Grandpa to Italy and go around everything, because he gets his citizenship by me getting my citizenship, which is a really cool thing. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So it throws it right back up because there was never that broken connection. Because what you have to do is when you're doing all this, you're getting the information from them, and they are also getting their names recorded in that book from your family. So it's a fun family event.
I bet. And it doesn't make any difference. You didn't have to do anything to change your passport for the U.S. or anything on the U.S. side?
No, so you keep your U.S. passport, and actually that's on one of my list of things to do once the New York consulate kind of opens up more for that, to get that Italian passport, because I got mine in 2019, and then,
Yeah. Didn't go anywhere.
Everything just shut down.
Exactly.
Yeah, but that is a dream, to go to Italy and get the stamp on my Italian passport and not have to do anything.
And hopefully get back to that original village, right? And see it all and be there in person as a dual citizen.
Oh, I love that.
Wow, fantastic. Gosh, you're a wealth of information on this topic. And Sarah, it's just been so much fun having you here at Genealogy Gems. And thank you so much for sharing your expertise. We appreciate it.
Oh, absolutely. My pleasure. Thank you so much. A real treat.